Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Fox, and today I wanted to talk about how to spec your high blue builds to achieve the highest possible damage output. The main issue with high blue builds, and these are very popular and basically meta at the moment, particularly in the dark zone, so this is a PvP breakdown, is that you do lose a lot of weapon damage, but there are ways to spec them using a combination of total weapon damage, multiplicative damage talents, and finally amplified damage talents to really enhance the damage that a high blue build can output. What I'm going to do today, and I will give you a bit of a disclaimer here, this video will be a little bit boring, there's no gameplay, it is basically just me in the firing range showing you different combinations with damage numbers for crit and non-crit. What I'm going to do is put all of those in the description below, so if you'd rather just read through those in the description, I have no issue with that. I just want to clear up a couple of misconceptions. I've seen this from a couple of content creators. I've had a fair few people on my video comment that one of the pieces that I've used is wrong. What I'm here to do today is to clear some of these misconceptions up and to show you all how to correctly spec your high blue build to make sure you are hitting as hard as possible. Now, before we get into that, I do just again want to thank everybody for the continued support of the channel. We have now opened up our Discord server as well. The channel is growing nicely, and that's all thanks to you guys. If you go into the description below all of the damage stats, you will see the link for our Discord server. What I would highly recommend you do if you're looking to get your own Discord server set up is to contact my friend Lugton, whose contact details are actually just below that link in the description. He's set up my server, and he'll happily set up your clan server as well. He offers admin services. He's set up our server so that we have bots for getting notifications from my videos, from Ubisoft themselves. So if you ever want to know sort of immediately maintenance updates, patch notes and so on, he can set up an event planner for you, so you can essentially have a program in which to set up raids, LFG, just tons of stuff. He's done a fantastic job, and if you're looking for a similar Discord server for your own clan, please do get in contact with him in the description below, or just join my server and you can @ him in there, which again will be in the description below. So with all that aside, let's get into the damage testing. Now what I'm going to do for the purpose of this video is I'm going to come away from this build, so if you do actually want to see this build in action, check the link in your screen now, right at the top, and again this will be in the description as well. You can see the conflict gameplay of this build, and this is basically the best way to spec a full blue build. Well, I say the best way. What you really want is the 2 Walker and Harris roll to blue and then a Coyotes so that you can maximise your crit chance and damage, but I just can't get a good chest, so yeah, either way, I discussed that in that video. Check that out at the link above that you just saw, or go into the description and you can go straight to the gameplay of this build. What we're going to do for the purpose of damage testing is put on a build with a gear set, because ultimately what I'm going to be doing is swapping out each of these pieces with an armor piece, so we don't change our weapon damage, but something that gives us multiplicative damage and potentially brand set bonus damage as well, just to show you the different stats and how this all works. The most common mistake I see is people running a 4 blue build. A great example would be probably the 2 best builds in PvP at the moment, or even the 3, Negotiators, True Patriot and Hunters. A lot of people usually have, let's say for example, the perfect intimidate chest on, something like this, and then they've got 1 space free to assign a damage bonus, so the 1 red on the build. What I've noticed a few content creators, but a lot of people in the community suggesting is to go for Grupo as opposed to something like Fenris or Sokolov, because Grupo gives you a lot more crit damage, and ultimately when you're critting you want them to hit harder, as that is based off your base damage. That is actually not true. You don't want to be using Grupo, and I'll show you that in the test in just a second. Now, because 4-piece True Patriot does apply a debuff in which we apply more damage, I'm actually going to swap this out for something else. We're still going to keep it as 5 blue. Let's just go back to that perfectly efficient chest. And what I'm going to do here is strip off these mods as well, so that when we change pieces around it doesn't skew the figures. So this is going to be the base test build just here. Now what we're going to do is look at the 1 red slot that you see in front of you here, changing this between Walker and Harris, or Walker, Harris and Co. Fenris, because we're using an AR with this build, but obviously you would factor in maybe Sokolov or Badger or whatever it is for your brand set, and then finally that Grupo. What we're then going to do, keeping the build exactly the same in terms of how many blues are on there, is include Contractors and Foxes, and look at those as well. So to get started, we're going to go with Walker and Harris. Now you can see that this mask here is rolled to relatively high crit damage and weapon damage, but we're not going to do Coyotes because yeah, it's not really going to sort of change anything with this build. So we're going to start with Walker and Harris. Now to look at the stats here before we go into this, you can see that my weapon damage is at 82.7k and my crit damage is at 119.3. Oh, hang on a second, I want to strip this mod off as well, my bad. So yeah, so the crit damage, this is going to be the base value that we're going to see here is 107.3. You'll see this number a lot, and with the Walker and Harris giving us the additional 5%, that goes up to 82,741. Now we don't have any multiplicative or amplified talents on this build. This is just, you know, this is purely here to keep the 5 blues on at the 1.6. Nothing here is enhancing our damage in terms of a talent, so that 82, whereas 82.7k will actually be the exact number that we see here. There you go, 82,741. So that's the non-crit with Walker, and then the crit is 171k. So this is going to be our essentially our base value that we're going to look at. Again, this will all be in the description below. What we're now going to do is change that to a Grupo. So you can see versus the Walker Harris, we're keeping the crit damage the same, 12%, and we're keeping the weapon damage the same. So there's no difference there, but of course what's going to happen is our weapon damage is going to go down as we've lost the 5% from Walker, and our 107.3 is added on 15% to go up to the 122.3. Everything else is still exactly the same. Let's have a look at the new numbers. So the crit damage, obviously the base damage is the same, but the crit damage is now higher at 178. So what's happened here is our base damage has gone down to 80, but our crit damage has gone up to 178. This is better than Walker and Harris, so far Grupo is winning versus Walker and Harris. What we now need to check is our Fenris, because we are using an assault rifle. So once again, keeping it the same, our crit damage is the same, and our weapon damage is the same. What's now going to happen to the stats is weapon damage of course goes up because Fenris is 10%, and our crit damage has gone back down to that default value of 107.3. Everything else is still exactly the same. The new numbers. So of course that base number is the same, but you notice that our crit there actually went up to 176. Now this is a tiny bit lower than Grupo. Grupo, if you remember, was 178k, but the base damage has gone up drastically from just over 80k to over 85k, and that's purely because we've got the Fenris damage boost on there, or the 10% additional assault rifle damage. The way that you want to calculate if this is better, and I've already done this, and just to clarify, this is true for every build, high blues or not, Fenris is better, but what you need to do is take the size of your mag. I know it's showing 78 because, you know, we've got we did have True Patriot on when we started this video, but the mag size is irrelevant. What you need to do is to take your crit chance and essentially factor in how many bullets within that mag are critting versus how many are not, and then add those two total damage numbers together to get your total mag size damage. So for example, if you had, in this case, 78 bullets in my Eagle Bearer and I was critting at, I don't know, exactly 60% crit rate, what you would do is times that 78 by 0.6, and that new number is the amount of bullets in your magazine that, statistically speaking, should be crits. You then want to take the crit damage and times it by that new number, and that essentially, that total damage is how much of your entire mag will be crit and how much damage that will be. You then want to take the remaining amount of your mag, so you could just times that 78 by 0.4 or whatever your non-crit value is, and do exactly the same thing. And by adding those two numbers together, what that will essentially do is give you the total one mag damage. So you know the number that you would achieve if you fired every single bullet into your enemy at whatever crit rate you have. And you will see that having the brand set is always better than having Grupo. If you can only afford to fit one of them on, such as a 4-piece Hunter's Fury build with a Golan Perfect Intimidate chest, you would never choose the Grupo. It is always better to go for the Sokolov, the Fenris, the Badger, the Overlord, whatever it is that you're using. It always equates to more damage. So just bear that in mind. So we already know that Fenris is best at slot at the moment. It does equate to more damage overall. It's just to clarify, it's not a massive amount more damage, but it definitely does equate to more damage. What we're now going to do is have a look at the Contractors and Foxes option. So let's go Contractors first. You can see these gloves are rolled to crit chance, which is fine. We're not worried about crit chance here. We're just looking at crit versus non-crit. So what I'm going to do is swap out for some blue Contractors that also have crit chance. And that means that our numbers are still the same. It's still the 85k, it's still the 107.3, we're still sat at the 1.6 million armor, nothing has changed there. All we've done is simply add in a multiplicative damage bonus of damage to armor. Let's have a look at the new figures. So we know before that the base damage was hitting at 85.3. That's been the same every time because we've had no multiplicative or amplified stats. Let's see what this does. So even though it's 85.3, that's showing 92k. We've still got the same blues, we've still got the same base weapon damage. So what we've done is just put that multiplicative in and that's gone up. The crit has gone up to 191. So if you remember the Fenris, it was 85 base and 176k crit, keeping everything the same but just putting in the 8% damage to armor. We've now gone up to 92 base from the 85 and 191 from the 176. That is a drastic improvement. And the reason for that is that a multiplicative damage talent, which is damage to armor, damage to health and damage to targets out of cover, is applied later in the equation. So it will take all of your weapon damage in the build, the total weapon damage plus the in this case the assault rifle weapon damage, and then essentially times that value by the 8% damage to armor. This pairs really well with more multiplicative damage talents, so we're going to apply the same test by also including in Fox's Prayer. Now you can see my knees are rolled to 12% crit damage and they're blue, so again we're going to do a direct swap. These Fox's Prayer are same thing, blue with 12% crit damage, which means that once again, if we go into my stats, it's still showing 85k, it's still showing 107 crit damage, and it's still showing the 1.6 million armor. So nothing has changed there, 85.3k. With the Contractors we hit the 92 base, this is now 99 base, so again a drastic improvement in base damage. The crit of the Contractors was 191, it's now 206. So you can see here we're talking huge number increases. So that's the reason why you want to get in any high blue build your weapon brand set over the Grupo if you can't afford to fit both. If you can do it, and then you want to be getting in Contractors and Foxes. I know this build looks a bit skewed at the moment. This is purely here just to show you that with the same base damage values and armor and crit damage, how much more damage you can actually squeeze by applying multiplicative damage bonuses. Just to once again prove that Grupo theory, if we go back to the Grupo, there it is. So again, the same build that we just did, and we were hitting, what was that, 99 base damage and 206 crit damage with the Fenris. So just remember those numbers. We've now gone to 93, so the base damage has dropped drastically from the 99 down to the 93. The crit damage of with the Fenris was 206. This is 207, so barely more on your crit damage, but your base damage is drastically higher. Once again proving that Grupo, if it's the only damage buff that you can get, you need to be choosing the brand set bonus first. Always choose it first. So that's pretty much everything there. I know, as I said, that was a bit of a boring video, and I apologise that I didn't have anything more interesting to show you here. I just wanted to clear up some misconceptions and to kind of, you know, just showcase that by putting this exact combination of brand sets and bonuses on your build, that you will really enhance your damage. If you remember, the base damage from the Walker, we went from 82 non-crit, 171 crit, and keeping pretty much everything the same. By having Contractors, Foxes and Fenris, we went up to 99 base damage from the 82 and 206 crit from the 171. That is a drastic improvement. So that is why when running your high blue AR builds or your high blue SMG builds, you need to be running them exactly as I showed you just here. Contractors, Foxes, weapon brand set bonus, ideally a couple of Walker if you can, and then if I could squeeze it in here I would get Coyotes, but I don't want to drop down to 3 blue with this build. But either way, with 4 blue, this build melts. And again, don't forget to check the gameplay in the description to see how this build performs in conflict. If you do have any questions, please go into the comments. You know, if anybody has any different ideas, any other ways they can enhance damage. I know we're not talked about amplified damage talents today. You know, that I just wanted to clear up the basics first, because everybody runs amplified damage talents for the most part. Spotter, glass cannon in PvE, not so much in PvP. Intimidate is obviously the big one. Lady Death comes with an amplified damage talent. The only real difference there is that is applied right at the end of the equation. It's an entirely separate bracket. So what that'll essentially do is factor in all of your other multiplicative damage talents on top of the base weapon damage, and then the amplified is the very final part of the equation, which usually equates to the largest damage boost in the game, and that's why Spotter is my talent of choice here. But yeah, you know, just something to factor in mind. Things like Vigilance increase total weapon damage, so whilst this is an additive stat, the total weapon damage stat in total is multiplicative. You'd simply take your base damage and times it by 1 point, whatever your added together total weapon damage and AR damages, and that is the new value. So, you know, having something like Vigilance and an amplified damage talent is usually a very good combo. So again, just go into those comments, let me know your thoughts and concerns. Hopefully I've cleared something up for you. Apologies that this isn't in the usual format of my videos, and I might have gone on for 15 minutes here. I just wanted to really clear some things up. Thanks again for the continued support of the channel. Thank you for watching this video to the end, and I will see you all in the next video.
Peace.